everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this short video, we'll be continuing our vlog series covering our Mediterranean cruise aboard the Royal Caribbean Oasis of the Seas in June 2024. In our previous videos, which are linked at the end of this one, we talked about our time aboard the ship and our time in Barcelona and Pisa. In the rest of the series, we'll be covering the ports we visited and the excursions we enjoyed, focusing here on Rome. As always, we'll give a bit of an overview of the port and the city, talk about what we got up to and what our excursion included. Rome was our second day ashore on the cruise, immediately following our day in Pisa. And just like Pisa, in reality the port is actually some distance from Rome itself. Civitavecchia, where you dock, is the port of Rome, but it's an hour and a half away from the city itself, meaning it's not particularly easy to visit for the day. However, you do get a chunk of time in port, with the gangway going down at 7:30 in the morning and up again at 7:30 at night, so you can have a fun day if you plan ahead. One option is to explore on your own. Of course, this is entirely possible to do if you want to get a train into the city or even a taxi if you're prepared for the bill. However, given the distance, we decided we'd rather book an excursion through Royal Caribbean. The main advantage here being convenience, but also you're assured that the ship isn't going to leave without you if you're delayed. The downside, of course, is that you have less freedom and these excursions are often quite expensive. If the city had been much closer, we'd probably have explored this on our own for these reasons, but ultimately we decided to go with an excursion on this occasion. There are dozens of options for different excursions, with different themes and tours of different sites throughout the city. For us, we wanted to largely explore on our own, so we could be flexible around the kids and what we fancied doing on the day. So basically just wanted transport in and out of the city, and preferably as early and late as possible to maximise our time in Rome. As with the Pisa excursions, we did find it frustrating that the descriptions of the excursions were pretty vague and didn't include a lot of information, which made it quite hard to plan ahead. In the end, we went for the hop-on, hop-off with transfer to Rome excursion. This had the bus transfer to and from Rome, but also included a hop-on, hop-off bus tour and was actually cheaper than a standalone bus transfer. We didn't really plan to use the hop-on, hop-off bus much, but given it cost less, it was a no-brainer to go with this option. The excursion says it's 9 hours and cost £271 for the 4 of us. Fairly pricey for what was effectively a transfer there and back, but you're paying for the convenience and safety net of a Royal Caribbean excursion. I won't read the full description, but it does say, explore the glory of Rome according to your own itinerary as you hop on and off the tour bus at the iconic sites of your choosing. There was no information on timings or where you would be dropped off and picked up, which again made it hard for us to plan the day in advance. In reality, 3 hours of the 9 were travelling, and so we actually had from around 10 AM until 4 PM in the city. We'd have liked longer with so much to do in Rome, so this was a little bit disappointing, but there wasn't another option which suited us. We booked the excursion around 4 months before sailing, and there was still a lot of availability then. Nearer the time, we noticed the options were much more limited, but with Rome being so popular, there were still options even if you booked later. Our excursion tickets were waiting in our room when we first arrived on board, and these included instructions on when and where to meet on the day. Our excursion was for 8:30 AM, so we were asked to meet in the Royal Theatre at 8:10, where you check in and are seated in your group until you're collected and walked off the ship to your coach. Make sure to read the excursion details on the app for tips on what to wear and what to bring with you as well. For example, if you want to visit the Vatican, there are some restrictions on what you need to wear, and you also need some ID with you. The coach journey took around an hour and a half, meaning we were dropped off in Rome at around 10 AM. On the way, there was loads of information given by the representative from the hop-on, hop-off bus company, which was called Big Bus Rome. We were given maps of the bus route, timings, information about different stops, and it really helped us plan our day. There are two different loops that the bus takes, with the second yellow route being very similar to the first, but does an extra loop out to San Giovanni at Laterano. The entire base route takes around 2 to 2.5 hours, doing a clockwise loop with buses every 15 minutes on the main red loop. The longer yellow route is only every 40 minutes. We were dropped at Circus Maximus, which is stop number 4 on the red loop, and we were told the halfway point from here was stop number 7 near the Spanish Steps, and to leave around an hour and 30 minutes from here to get back to the pickup point at Circus Maximus for 4 p.m. sharp. Looking at the main sites on the map, most of these are located to the east of the river, with only the Vatican to the west. The bus doesn't cross the river, so your best bet is to get off at stop number 6 near Castle Sant'Angelo and walk across, jump in a taxi or use public transport. Rome does have a decent metro system, but we didn't have time to tackle it on this occasion. At the top of the city centre, you've got Villa Borghese, which is the main park in Rome, Piazza del Popolo, the Spanish Steps and the Trevi Fountain. The area near and around these is a good area for shopping, with Via del Corso, Via Condotti and Via del Tritone all being really good shopping streets. Just south of here, right in the middle of the city, near stop number 6, is the Pantheon and Piazza Navona. Then finally, in the south of the city are some of the most famous Roman ruins in the city: Capitoline Hill, the Roman Forum and the Colosseum. Of course, there's so much more to see and do, but these are probably your headline sites for a day trip. With only a short day in Rome, we knew we'd never be able to take in everything. Greg and I have had a holiday in Rome before and seen most of the main sites already, so we decided to just pick out a couple and enjoy a day in the city. We decided early on in our planning that the Colosseum would be our number one priority to show the kids. Tickets to the Colosseum often book up as you'd expect, so we wanted to pre-book a tour. Not knowing anything about timings or drop-off locations, etc., we had to just make a call on this, and we booked it for midday, which we thought was safe and we'd definitely be around the city centre at this time. We shopped around a little, with there being so many options and different tours available, with different packages and inclusions. A lot of the tours tended to include a guided tour of the Colosseum and the Roman Forum, lasting several hours. Being tight on time and not wanting to bore the kids, we just wanted a short tour of the Colosseum with access to the Roman Forum afterwards so we could wander around ourselves. We usually use Viator, linked below in the description of this video, but eventually found one that fit the bill on Get Your Guide, which lasted an hour and cost £150 for the 4 of us. With this booked for midday, we had to work backwards to plan our day to be at the meeting point on time. For us, this meant we hopped on the tour bus along with everyone else and then got off at the first stop, number 5 on Capitoline Hill. We were able to have a little wander, take in the sights and views over the Roman Forum, which is basically the old city centre of ancient Rome, and wander down towards the Colosseum, walking down Via dei Fori Imperiali. We wanted to get something to eat before our tour and found a lovely restaurant in the side streets just before the Colosseum. The food here, particularly the pizza, was brilliant and not too expensive either, which was really nice in such a tourist trap. Our tour left from the metro station Colosseum, meeting 15 minutes before. It's really easy to find our guide. We got our headsets set up, which worked perfectly, and then we were led over the road to the Colosseum. You do have to queue up with everyone else, although this only took about 10 minutes to get through security, and you need to make sure you have a government approved photo ID, as they do carry out spot checks at security, so we made sure to bring our passports with us in a travel wallet. Once inside, the tour guide led us around the bottom floor of the Colosseum, explaining all about the history of the arena and what it was used for and how it was built, etc. Our tour guide was fantastic, giving us loads of information, and their English was really clear and the headsets worked really well. I'd say the only downside was how busy it was. It was absolutely crammed with people, jostling around in the sun, meaning it wasn't that relaxing or easy to enjoy, unfortunately. So keep this in mind and allow some more time if you can to take your time and take everything in. The tour stuck to a relatively small part of the arena on the ground floor, but once it was done we were then free to explore the upper level ourselves. It was a little bit less crowded upstairs with some amazing views back down into the arena. You may notice some tour groups down on the arena floor, or rather underneath where the floor would have been. To get on these you need special tickets, which are far harder to get, but I think would definitely be worthwhile if you have the time and can get hold of the tickets, as obviously you'll see far more of the arena and dodge some of the crowds as well. There's a shop on site, but again it was just too crowded to really have a look around, so we headed for the exit. The plan now had been to wander up through the Roman Forum to explore this, all the way to Capitoline Hill, perhaps with a diversion to the Palatine Hill overlooking the Forum. But by now it was already 1 PM and half of our day was already gone, so we had to prioritise. Having already spent quite a bit of time here, the kids wanted to move on, so we decided to spend the rest of our time trying to take in the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain and maybe the Pantheon. Being short on time, the bus wasn't an option, so we tried to hail a taxi, only to be quoted around €40 to take us just 10 minutes up the road. So we used Uber instead and got a ride for the fraction of the cost. We were dropped near the Spanish Steps and spent a little time seeing these and shopping in the surrounding streets, letting the kids spend some of their pocket money in the Lazio team store and Pandora. This is a lovely area of the city, slightly less crowded, with loads of shops and little streets to explore. The Spanish Steps themselves were a tad underwhelming. For us, when we think of them covered in flowers decorating the steps, looking really beautiful. At the time we visited, there weren't any flowers, so it wasn't quite as picturesque, and of course they were really busy. Also note that you can't sit and snack or picnic on the steps, as the local police were moving anybody on who was lingering or trying to sit down. With just 90 minutes left, we knew we wouldn't have time to see the Pantheon, so decided just to see the Trevi Fountain before getting a taxi back to the pickup point. We wanted to give ourselves plenty of time to get back, as so not to miss the bus. As you can see, the fountain was just jam-packed with people, crazy busy, so we didn't even try to fight our way to the front. We saw it, it's a beautiful fountain, but it's not the experience you imagine. So it was a case of a quick picture and move on. There are loads of shops and cafes nearby, so we stopped in a couple of those. We also made a quick stop in McDonald's for the bathroom, although the queue was 30 minutes long, so even with a quick Uber ride back to Circus Maximus, we still almost nearly missed the bus, which was more stressful than we intended it to be. The journey back to the ship took another hour and a half, and we were back on board just in time for dinner, a bit before 6 PM. So that was our whirlwind day in Rome. I think we all had quite mixed feelings about the day, to be honest. Rome is an amazing city, but it's by far the busiest city we've ever visited, meaning it can be a little overwhelming in the heat and the noise. It's probably somewhere you want to spend a good 3 to 4 nights, take it slow, visit the main sites outside of the main hours when they'll be much less busy. It's not really a great city for a short day trip when there's so much to see. Greg and I did end up feeling a bit frustrated at the number of things we didn't have time to see, even though going in we knew this would be the case. And the kids didn't really enjoy being rushed around a busy city. So I think if you're doing a similar day trip, you need to prepare yourself and limit what you intend to do. One way to see a bit more would have been to have brought a packed lunch or to eat on the bus to save time, not sitting and eating in a restaurant. But food in Rome is one of the things that the city is most famous for, so this would have been a shame. Or we could have just sat on the tour bus around the city to see the main sights, but then we wouldn't have got to see the Spanish Steps or the Trevi Fountain. I think whatever you choose, you'll have to give up something, meaning that a day trip excursion definitely isn't the best way to see a city as fascinating as Rome. In terms of the excursion, yes, it did the trick. it got us in and out of Rome. It was pricey and we would have liked a bit longer, but there was nothing we could do about that without taking the train ourselves, which we just didn't fancy. The hop-on hop-off tour bus seemed really good, and it was good to have this included for the same price, but it just wasn't how we wanted to see the city on this occasion. So that brings us to the end of the vlog, and hopefully it's been useful for your visit. If so, please subscribe and like the video to support the channel. If there's anything at all you want to know, then please just message us in the comments below. Next week we'll look at our time in Naples, so make sure to subscribe to catch that. Thank you all so much for watching.